Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. And welcome to a new portion of the show I like to call The Villain Files. This is where I take a villain from a TV show, movie, or video game that I played or watched during my time, and have a look at them to see what makes them such memorable villains to me. Whether it be their backstories, their personalities, the evil schemes they come up with, and just all about everything that makes them such awesome villains to me. And they're not going to be in any particular order or anything, it's just going to be any villain that I've seen and grown up with. And the first villain I'm going to look at tonight is the childhood friend and adulthood enemy of the Doctor. She's caused so much havoc around the universe, caused the death of many people, and has even caused the death of the dead people. If that makes any sense to you. This is Missy, formerly known as the Master. Since I haven't watched any classic Doctor Who stories with Missy as the main villain, I'll just go through the history of her real quick before I go through what I do know about her from the new series. Missy, also known as the Master, wasn't always the evil Time Lady we know her as today. In her early days, she started off as a young Gallifreyan boy who was a friend of the Doctor's when they were children. They used to play in the fields together when they were little. But when the Master turned 8 years old, he was taken by the Academy to look into the untempered schism, from which one could see the entire time vortex. And some Time Lords were inspired by it. Some would run away, including the Doctor, and some would go insane. And the Master went insane as soon as he heard a rhythm of 4 drum beats, which he calls the never-ending drums. Since then, he's had a passion to conquer the universe. When the Third Doctor was exiled to 20th century Earth, he fought the Master a number of times, who had been in league with many other galactic powers, such as the Nestine Consciousness and even the Daleks. From 1971 to 1973, the Master was portrayed by Roger DeGaldo, until his untimely death. When the character returned in the Fourth Doctor's era, as a decaying body who had loosed up all his 13 regenerations, he was portrayed by Peter Pratt, and then Geoffrey Beevers. This version of the Master was filled with a hatred for the Doctor. Then when this Master stole the body of another human being, he was portrayed by Anthony Ainley, who would haunt the lives of the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th Doctor. In the 1996 TV movie, he was portrayed by Eric Roberts, who attempted to steal the Doctor's TARDIS, then used the Eye of Harmony to steal all of the Doctor's remaining regenerations, since the Master had used up all of his. But his plans failed when he was accidentally sucked into the Eye of Harmony, never to be seen again. Before the show's revival in 2005, the Master, along with the Daleks, became the main villains of the 1999 comic relief shorts, The Curse of Fatal Death. In that comic relief special, he was portrayed by Jonathan Pryce, who gave a very comical portrayal of the character, knowing him to be very full of himself and to make mistakes, like leaving his speaker on when he's spying on the Doctor, and plotting his plans to kill him. He'd even given himself a Dalek plunger for a hand, and then later on Dalek bumps, which looked more like breasts. Even though the Master died after fighting the 8th Doctor, being sucked into the Eye of Harmony wasn't going to keep the Master lying down dead for long. During the Time War, the Time Lords resurrected the Master, thinking that he would be the perfect warrior for the Time War. But because of the many horrors he encountered, including the Dalek Emperor taking control of the Cruciform, he ran away from the Time War and made himself human so no one would find him. He based himself in the end of the universe and disguised himself as a human named Professor Yana. But when the Doctor, Martha Jones and Captain Jack Harkness arrived at the end of the universe, that persuaded Yana to open the watch and regain his evil self. During that time, he was played very briefly by Sir Derek Jacobi, only to be shot by his assistant Chanto and to regenerate into his new form. During the regeneration, the Master stole the Doctor's TARDIS and travelled back in time to 21st century London, where he would become Harold Saxon and eventually Prime Minister of Great Britain. He even got married to a woman named Lucy, and she stood by his side while he conquered the universe with the Toclophane. But the Doctor reversed everything that he'd done so it never happened. But because they were all at the eye of the storm, they remembered, and Lucy ended up shooting the Master. And the Doctor held his old enemy and friend in his arms and then burnt his body. But this wasn't the last we saw of the Master. In the 2009 Christmas special, The End of Time Part 1, the Master was resurrected from his many followers who never lost faith after his death. But his resurrection went wrong when Lucy Saxon interfered, causing an explosion in the mansion. Unfortunately for the Doctor, the Master survived the explosion, but his body became very unstable, causing his skull to appear every now and then. And he gained an amazing power from his hands, which turned out to be his life force. And this time the Master was even more insane than usual, and the drums in his head were getting stronger and stronger. Once he gained access to an alien object known as the Gate, he used it to turn everyone on Earth into himself, except for the Doctor, Wilf, and his granddaughter Donna. During that time, the Master used his other clones to find out where the drums came from, which led to a White Point star being sent to his time, which he would use to bring back the Time Lords for the Time War. But it was then revealed that the Time Lords were just using the Master so they could cause the end of time just to survive the Time War. And it was even revealed that Rassilon himself put the drums inside the Master's head, causing him to go insane. After the Doctor destroyed the link between the Time War and today, Rassilon attempted to kill the Doctor with his glove, but the Master redeemed himself by saving the Doctor and going back into the Time War himself. During that time, the Master was portrayed by John Sim, who gave a lot of intelligence and an ego to the character. And on top of all that, the Master was a bit bonkers. Even being sucked back into the Time War with Rassilon wasn't enough to keep this rebel Time Lord down, and he made a surprising comeback in 2014, with a new face and a new gender. Sometime during the Time War, the Master regenerated into a new form, which turned out to be a woman who he nicknamed himself Missy, short for Mistress. Sometime after, or even before the Doctor saved Gallifrey by sending it to a parallel pocket universe, Missy stole a Gallifreyan hard drive, who she called the Neversphere, and presumably a TARDIS, and somehow escaped the Time War and came back to 21st century Earth. Since then, she's been disguised in the St. Paul's Cathedral as an institute called 3W, an institute dedicated to giving those who died a comfortable life, believing that the dead are still conscious. She used this to her advantage, where she used the Neversphere to send dire minds into it so she could then upgrade the bodies and then re-download them. She was even responsible for bringing the Doctor and Clara Oswald together and keeping them together. But the knowledge of Missy being the Master was unknown until the Doctor and Clara went to the 3W Institute to get Danny Pink back from the dead after he passed away. When Missy finally revealed herself to the Doctor as the Master, she planned to upgrade every dead human being on Earth into Cybermen, which she would then use to conquer the universe. But it was then later revealed that the Cyberman army was just for the Doctor's birthday present, because Missy wanted to prove that the Doctor and her weren't so different. After all this time, she just wanted her friend back. But her plans failed when Danny, converted into a Cyberman but still holding on to his emotions because of his love for Clara, used the control bracelet to send the Cybermen into the clouds of cyberpollen and destroy them to save the Earth. After giving the Doctor false coordinates to Gallifrey's current location, Clara attempts to kill Missy after everything that's happened. But the Doctor volunteers to do it himself just to save Clara's soul from doing the wrong thing. But before the Doctor could prove that he would actually do it, Missy ended up being shot by a converted Brigadier Ledwidge Stewart, who also held on to his emotions. This latest incarnation of the Master was portrayed by Michelle Gomez, who had big shoes to fill considering how popular John Sim was as the Master, and she does the job really, really well. The relationship between Missy and the Doctor is very complicated because they used to be childhood friends. It was even mentioned by the Doctor and Missy a number of occasions that they used to be friends. And despite all their differences, like the paths they chose, the Doctor and Missy have somewhat equal intelligence. It's already been revealed by head writer Stephen Moffat that Michelle Gomez will return to reprise Missy, but we don't know when. So wherever Missy is, you can guarantee that she'll bring hell to the Doctor's life. And that's the Villain Files on everything I know about Missy, aka the Master. Keep checking my channel to see more Villain Files in the future. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.